Hi,
All
Randall.
right. William,
It's been a long time, man.
I think it's 40 years, isn't
It would, well, it seems like it. Yeah.
it?
Happy Valentine's
Uh,
Day, almost, kind of, sort of
kind of
past.
close enough. My favorite holiday of the whole year.
Yeah, you
So,
said that in your post in Facebook, which is what kind of prompted us to have the chat today.
yeah, got us started with me showing off Anthony Fauci as our Valentine.
Yeah. That I don't know what kind of reactions you got from everyone else, but I was looking at that and saying, I'm not sure if everyone agrees with you on that one, Randall.
Well, sometimes you have to just jar people to get them to pay attention, eh? And I don't know why, but I'm a provoker. I just I like to, I got this from my friend Josephine over in India. And she said something about a group. It's kind of one of these groups that's involved with the legal jurisdiction battle with the birth certificate one. And I poked a little bit at it. And she said, and then the one guy said, some people are just addicted to finding problems or something like that. And I said, and others are in, I said, how the hell did that go? Something along the lines of, I'm addicted to provoking, you know, provokers. So I don't know why, but I just have this little thing inside of me that says everything is perfect moving towards completion. That everything, if we want to deny that, oh, what was that?
Those were balloons, and I had nothing to do with that.
That
But the
was
timing
cool,
couldn't have
eh?
been better. That was fantastic.
Oh my God. That was amazing. I thought you pushed a button, you
I
bugger.
didn't. I'm sitting here, my hands are on my lap, just watching, and all of a sudden watching these balloons go up, and I said, what did Randall press now?
Perfect moving towards completion. Let's try it again. No, didn't work the
Well,
next.
it didn't work that time. I don't know.
And
Well,
then the
there's
other,
a reactions button on Zoom these days, and maybe that had something to do with it. But that was just automatic. That was AI, everybody.
the other thing is, the idea of working with and not against. And then I've said to my darling Ida, who I hope watches this and joins us next time, Ida, please join us. I used to say to her, Ida, I'm in heaven. And once you see heaven, you can't go back to hell. It doesn't work. So hell is judgment. Hell is liability. Hell is the legal jurisdiction if you get stuck in good guys and bad guys, blame and shame. I call it GDBS, guilt, doubt in yourself, and doubt in the Almighty that started this whole creation process. And I'm not calling it an anthropomorphic deity or anything like that, but love is what started this whole thing. And we're here to co create with that love. So if we doubt that, we're going to fall into doubt or fall into guilt or blame and shame, right? And those were words that my darling Ida used to use all the time, you know, except for the doubt part. The other GD or the other GBS she used a lot. And it's trauma based. We as individual human beings incur a trauma in our life and we're tempted to judge it, right? You
Well,
know,
it's no accident, actually, in a way, that you invited me today. I mean, you were just going by the inspiration, right? Just because I responded to something you said on Facebook in that Fauci post that just made you say, "Hey, let's chat. We haven't chatted for a long time. Let's do that." And as so often is with our calls, is when you share something, it usually tweaks something for me. And definitely, in my life, I am definitely going through what a lot of people could perceive as drama or sorrow or challenge. And it's really easy to kind of fall into that, you know, um, either victim role or whatever role you've fallen into in the past when you got caught up in the game, like my mom's not doing great. And so and our family over the years has been always a little more emotionally guarded, like tender emotions of pain or sorrow or sadness. Those are all, we kind of kept it to ourselves. It wasn't really shared openly in our family. And we were much more emotionally neutral. And maybe sometimes if we lost our cool, we might blow up or something. Um, but yeah, it's sort of like now everything in my world, in my family's world, is kind of feeling like there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of emotion coming up. There's part of it has to do with obviously, health challenges and all that kind of thing. But it's so easy. It's so easy to, when you've been used to it and grown up in the world of, believing everything that's going on and then making your own thoughts and ideas out of it from wherever that comes from, the ego or whatever you want to call that. Um, I can definitely relate, definitely relate to getting caught up in the drama of everything.
Yeah, drama or trauma, both good words to discuss because, both involve emotion, right? And from my standpoint, all through my life, I mean, that I was diagnosed bipolar back in the day, way back, like when I was 33 years old and I died. And then I came back to life. And then I was like enlightened and I'm like, holy shit, that wasn't so bad. So then I became this kind of manic character, right? And when I couldn't handle that mania, which I can handle now, by the way, but when I couldn't, they diagnosed me, the psychiatric industry, as bipolar. And I'm like, well, I don't get sad. I don't get depressed. Like, what the hell? That's what bipolar means, right? Is that you're either really happy and grandiose or you're sad and depressed. I'm like, no, I'm just kind of a little manic, like I admit that. And I got to learn how to, tone it down. I got so much energy. It's like the sun of God, like that big thing that's in the sky, that harmonic resonating thing that just gives off energy to us. I admit to being like, and I have to tone it down, and I'm okay with that. But you know, the words that we're using today, like trauma and drama, are emotional words, and I chose to balance myself, balance that energy by using another form of play acting or theatrics, which is comedy or the comedic tragedy that I call the Looniverse, or, the government media and a lot of alternative media falls into the same thing. When in truth, the only story that's real is a love story. And that's what we said to begin with, the creator, the original idea was love. And it still is if we co-create with it, falling from the Garden of Eden, biting the apple, the proverbial biting of the apple was just biting into the idea that there could be poison, there could be something bad, when there's not. Everything is good in the Garden of Eden, and that's heaven. So I kind of went back to where I started, but we might do that a few times today because it's really a simple process. It's either falling as a fallen angel that we all are, for the trauma, the drama, the comedic tragedy, whatever you want to call it, or rising as an angel. Look at me, I'm an angel, aren't I?
Yes, you are the only angel I know that wears a cowboy hat too.
It's up there. And you are too, William, because that's what we all are. And we can either be fallen angels or we can be ascending angels, because I'm never going to be supra conscious, but I'm aiming for super conscious and super enlightened, all those kind of words. I want to continue to increase and rise and ascend and those kind of that kind of language, you know. And the only way to do that is to have good positive energy, isn't it?
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt when you have that, that's for sure. That helps a lot. Um, Funny, the you misspoke slightly with the word, and it all of a sudden tweaked something interesting because um, you like to play with the words and you see the words within the words and that kind of thing. And you didn't say angel right the first time, and then you corrected yourself. And it almost came out like the word anger. And then I thought, well, anger and angel are the same word. The only difference is that one has an R at the end and one has an L at the end. And I thought, there's another one. I never think of these things only when I'm talking with you. It's so funny.
So the L fell off
Yeah.
the end of angel and got
Arr,
R came back in.
arr,
R Billy.
arr, never been a pirate, Billy. Yeah.
This is more fun than I expected. I didn't know what we were going to really talk about, but I'm really enjoying this so far. So keep it going, brother.
All right. Well, great. This is wonderful. Um, I'm I was thinking about a couple other things as you were speaking and that, talking about angels and all of that. And um, I think I want to go here if you're open to it, because your mom has since passed this plane of existence. And she had a rough go of it, the way I understood it from your book. Um, and this, I understand, happened quite a while ago. It was before your own near-death experience or death experience or whatever we want to label that. Is that accurate? I don't know the chronology of all of that.
Oh yeah, she passed away quite a long time after I bled out on the hospital bed and
Right.
all that's
I know I've
yeah.
asked you, I know I've asked you before. I can't remember what the answer was, except that like there are channels on YouTube that some of them that I follow that talk to people who have had near death experiences, if you want to call it that. I kind of don't like calling it near death because technically they actually did physically die and then they went somewhere and then they came back. And it's interesting that the experiences aren't exactly the same from person to person. It was very unique, actually. There are commonalities, definitely. And I know that I asked you a little bit about that in the past, but you didn't have any conscious awarenesses that I seem to recall when you, uh, shall we say, temporarily passed over.
Yeah. Yeah, no, other than just complete utter peace. And that's what got me to the point of saying, why would anybody fear death? But let's just go a little tiny bit deeper into that because I was thinking about that, you know, not thinking about mom, which, I have utter compassion for anyone that passes on, let's call it that.
Yeah.
But, life is so much more than our physical experience here, like every cell in these bodies of ours, like billions or trillions of them, are alive, right? And when you think of it that way, like that never ends, life life just goes on and on, especially if we don't burn them and put them in little pots, urns and stuff like that. That's kind of silly. Or if we cook food, it kind of kills the cells first and then we sorry, did I get into that right away? But I'm going to because
You know what? I'm laughing because I was thinking about, lately you started eating raw and I'm thinking, I don't think we want to leave corpses around, leave them raw. We don't want, it just wouldn't be very palatable, I think.
well, let's just touch now that we opened that book, let's just touch it for a second because raw food means that you're putting live living cells into your body, right? You're not killing it with fire
I'm going to
first.
interrupt for 1 second, but I'm just going to say too, that seems to be some folks' argument for those who are like pro-vegan or pro-vegetable, and they're sort of like almost anti-meat, is sort of like put living foods in you, but animal stuff isn't really living foods anymore because you cook the crap out of it. But now you bring up an interesting point, and I consider you a very brave person on the physical plane to be eating raw meat based on what we've learned or been taught as we grew up. And yet you're feeling no real adverse effects. And by all means, folks, I'm not promoting any kind of diet. You follow what's true for you if you're watching this. But Randall, you felt something compelled you or drew you into that. So maybe you can tell us a little more about that.
Well, again, this friend of mine over in India kind of touched on it, and then she suggested a book by Augenis Vonderplanets. It's quite a handle, eh? Fantastic book. And I mean, I agree with William. I'm not promoting one way or the other. You get to choose, and that's what life is always about. And believe it or not, whether you think that we live in a controlled slave matrix environment or not, you're still choosing. And that's what got us kind of started on this little Anthony Fauci giggle in the first place was, the idea that people still chose, to do this to themselves and stuff, and as much deception as there was involved, there's still the ability to research and look at, things on your own. But the I could talk a wee bit more about the raw food because it's not as enjoyable, I'm going to say. There's a lot of flavor when you mix spices and cook the fat on a beef or something. Oh, it's just delicious, right? But so are we just addicts? Do we become addicted to things like taste and flavor and stuff? I'd say that 100%. But do I feel healthier? Yeah. I mean, I've been kind of on a health kick for, since I had liver cancer, which was when I was 48 years old, 14 years ago. And I feel even healthier now since I started this. And it's only been a month and a half. But it calms me down, believe it or not. Like, how people will talk in terms of, you're eating the dead animal, so you're driving that fear and anger into your mind, and the fear that when they die and all that. Totally opposite effect when I started eating raw. It's very relaxing. It's very easy to digest, all kinds of things. So again, we opened the conversation, so we're talking about it, but not suggesting it. Everyone gets to choose. And that's the key with me when it comes to diet or, money, you name it. Like, you choose, because the true ascension happens within you. When you connect to the Christ consciousness, the mother and father, the divine within you, whatever language you want to use, the universe, that's all within you, right? And when that happens, then there's a special kind of a connection that no one can take away from you. That's true sovereignty. And no kind of judgment will ever take that away, So I don't know. I think we should, unless you have something else you want to chat about on that, I think I've probably answered your question.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't really a question, just to ask you to dive into it a little more, which you did. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing that. And it's kind of cool to hear your perspective on that. And you touched on a couple other things. You talked about addiction, and for me, I can relate to addiction. Not addiction, maybe in ways like that. When you say the word addiction, a lot of people will think of certain specific things that you're addicted to, like alcohol or drugs or that kind of thing. But there are all kinds of addictions. My addiction happens to be my computer. I mean, I use my computer to do business, but when I decide to have some downtime for myself, what do? Well, I keep looking at the computer. I'll watch television shows. I'll, screen through Facebook. I'll look at emails. And before you know it, the next day is gone and the next day is gone and so on. So there are addictions for all of us out there that we could fall into, and we always have the choice to step out of that. And, like it seems like I mention this every time you and I talk, is I like to follow a guy named Kyle Cease, who's very much into spiritual work and spiritual healing and looking at life in different ways. And I learn a lot from him because his work, his sharing is always talking about his own experience, and whatever he shares comes from his experience. And even when he's working with someone else to help them in their journey with whatever challenges they're facing, the way he helps them usually is by saying something or sharing something that comes through him, but then he says that oftentimes it's something he also needs to hear. It's almost like these things come into his life so that he can hear it and bring it into his life and integrate it as well. So it's fascinating. I know for me, and you know, in talks with you and talks with Lee in the past and some of our conversations, uh, I developed the nickname Captain Neutral because I like to look at different elements, left side, right side, and never really like pick a side, so to speak, because there seems to be this need or this force that, oh, you've got to pick a side, you've got to go with this side or that side or whatever. And I've always been more of an observer. I've always been, you know, it's interesting to see how something like, well, raw, you know, eating raw meat works for you, whereas other people will say, oh my God, you're going to get food poisoning. Don't do that. You know, that's blah, blah, blah. And on the worry and fear train you go. But the same thing kind of applies when it comes to, um, you know, you said something earlier about you didn't say it in this way, but basically the message I got back was we are eternal beings. We never really die. I mean, our physical skin suit, if you will change and transmute back into dust or whatever it is that we are formed of in the physical realm. But our truest energy never really dies. And I've heard that. And I also know that I don't 100% believe that. And there's a part of me that wants to believe that, but I don't know if it's a human element or something that I need to still learn and experience or go through. But I noticed that I have that. And one other thing I'll share real quick is that I've learned very recently too, that having whatever feelings you have, whatever they are about whatever the subject matter is, they're not good, bad, right, or wrong. They just are. And it's best to, rather than fighting them and say, oh, I shouldn't have those, like self-judgment, that kind of thing, is just to allow them to be and express within your own, you know, being, mind, consciousness. Because if you allow that, it actually dissipates over time. And sometimes it's very quick, sometimes it takes a few days, but usually it's not much longer than a few days. The challenge is when you resist it, say, oh, I shouldn't have that, I shouldn't feel like that, and you don't allow it to express. And I've found that, you know, fascinating. I can't say that I've totally integrated that in my life yet. I don't get over things like boom, like that. But I do find that um, as I keep as I keep studying and keep looking into spiritual work and that kind of thing, it does feel right. Like I like to follow things that feel right for me. And again, you know, for the people that are happen to be watching this video, that's if there's any one thing I would recommend is that you do that too. Not what I'm doing, but what feels right for you, what feels like, yes, this feels good. Follow this. Whatever some people say, call it, follow your highest excitement. Bashar, a channel, said that one time, and that kind of has stuck with me. But you know, whatever that is for you, that feels right. Like I'm a very strong believer of intuition and following your heart and following the feelings inside of that. So I said a lot in a short period of time, kind of jumped around, but your comments kind of inspired that, and I wanted to share that, put that out there.
Awesome, William. And I mean, it does, you know, resonate with me what you're saying, like the whole idea of the soul never dying, which what you said. I'm reading a really good author these days named Joseph Benner. The Impersonal Life was the first book I read, and now I'm on to The Path to the Kingdom, I think it's called, or something like that. But wonderful books that are Christian based. Don't get me wrong, you know, that they'll still refer to Jesus Christ, not so much the rest of the Bible, but just Jesus Christ, you know, and his wonderful red text or red letter words in the King James Version and stuff. And he referred in this latest chapter to the soul being the eagle, which was really intriguing to me because, you know, we can destroy our ego and go completely into a Zen space, right? Just a completely peaceful space. But then what are you going to do? Like hang out in a cave? So we all come back to our ego, which is a decision maker. It is where we choose. And the choice that I always refer to, rather than good or bad, is love or fear. Because bad falls into fear, anger falls into fear, distrust, judgment, you name it. All those things fall into fear. The only reason that those come into your mind is because you're fearful. If you're unfearful, then you're ultimately loving. But, the idea that where was I just before I said the idea of fear and love?
You got me. I don't know.
I was going too fast for myself there.
We drew a blank.
Yes, that's okay. Okay, the idea of the soul and that, the being the ego. So when we learn or connect with the divine in a conscious manner through meditation or whatever, then instead of just staying there in that Zen space, we come back to this world, like this, and we have our opinions and we have our ideas and stuff. So those are when I related that to the soul and that mental activity that we share, or that I called my ego right now, then that's the part that can die if someone else in our life lets it die. So I don't let my mother die or my father. In fact, my prayers every morning, I I do a series of about half an hour, or it's actually more than that. I do one Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, and then I go through a gratefulness meditation, then I go through an exercise routine. And all of them, I drive a bunch of words into my mind, and very repetitive words. And in that process, I bring to mind my father and my mother, and I picture them because I've got pictures on my phone. It's easy for my mind to just go, oh, hi, mom, hi, dad. So that's the part of them that never dies: their soul, their ego, their opinions, their love, those things, that continue to live forever, as long as we allow them to live forever. So ancestry related to, death is kind of an interesting thing when you look at it from that perspective, I think. But, do we miss them? Of course. Do we want them to be around so that we can give them a hug and stuff? Of course. That's the part that's hard. That's where the emotions come in, and it doesn't matter if mom or dad or child, or, death is probably the biggest challenge: to stay in heaven, to stay out of judgment, to stay out of the idea that something went wrong, that God's plan went wrong. Well, God's plan, I'm saying that, and it might sound like an anthropomorphic deity again, but it's not. It's just the idea, the plan for this amazing heavenly Mother Earth plane that we can either participate in willingly or fear and fight, like the rest of the animals just participate in it. Do they judge one another? Does the lion judge the tiger for eating his food? No, he'll just go and eat the tiger if he can get a hand on him. Like it's just, staying out of judgment and staying in that idea that everything is perfect, moving toward complete, William. And I mean, God bless every human and every life, and never let them die. Just think about them and love them.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful, Randall. It's just so wonderful to be reminded of that, especially if you're going through hard times, or challenging times, at least challenging in this realm. If you're finding that things are definitely challenging. I got one more question for you, and then I got the old Zoom warning that we only have a few minutes left, so I'll have to continue this another time perhaps. But um, my thought was basically around What would you recommend or suggest? No, I'm gonna take that back. I was thinking about, there's a part of me that has a certain judgment, if you will, about my own life, and I notice your life in some ways has a parallel to mine, in that we're single men and that we're living kind of alone in our own space, and and you spend a lot of time alone by yourself, but it really does depend on the choices you make as to what your experience is of that. Like I have from time to time experiences of, it's bad or it's wrong. Like you're a single man, you should be with someone, or it's tragic, it's, all these kinds of things. Everyone deserves someone to love, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Um, and yet I see, like, I look at your life from, I mean, my limited point of view, because I only see you at certain times in your videos, but you're always um, happy or joyful and full of love and full of peace, and you love everything that you experience and share with people, at least from what I can see. And I believe that probably is true of most of your life. And like you said at the beginning of this call, when you're in heaven, why would you ever want to go back? So you're obviously living a kind of a heaven here on this realm already. And possibly thank you to the situation that some people might call a near-death experience. But I'm just wondering if there's anything you can share to people who are stuck in the drama or stuck in that part in their world and their life where they're saying, oh, it's not like it should be, it's not like society says, or it's not like, most people have. Are there any last thoughts that you'd like to share with people about that?
Sure. If you ever start to feel that, being alone or whatever you want to call it is being recorded. Okay. I thought it said something about our ending. Is to go into your imagination, you know? And then when you're in your imagination, just be loving of everything and everyone. And, the reason I'm so happy all the time is because I'm a serial monogamist. Okay. I'm always in a relationship with a lady, always. And whether it mostly is my imagination on one-sided kind of a thing, or if it's something that's mutual, but I've never stopped doing that, and I don't regret it. And have I had a number of relationships? Yes. Have each one of them taught me something about myself? Yes. Have each one of my male relationships taught me something about myself? Hell yeah. Every time it's always about us and it's always about me. So then I go inside and I'm like, oh, did I judge that guy? Yeah, I did. Thank you for teaching me that, whoever it was. Like that's the kind of where my mind goes. Like, God, if he never comes back again, and if he runs away, that's okay. But I love you, and I'm sorry. Like not in sorry that I'm going to deal with whatever it was in at the time again. But I'm sorry, but I'm also grateful that you brought that to my attention, because there is one thing going on here, one major idea. And if I fell into judgment, that's me that has to look at that, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
Like you judge, you're judging something that's outside of you, and you could say thank you to that person for being a teacher to me, whether you say it directly to them or just within your own thoughts. Or you could just say thank you for that circumstance that brought this to me as well. So sorry to interrupt, but I just kind of wanted to throw that in there.
no interruption at all. I mean, I could yatter on for a week, you know me, but we're going to end it, right?
Well, you're very respectful of people's time, and I always have appreciated that as a viewer of your channel. And of course, Randy can still be seen on YouTube, and of course, this will be seen on the Dow channel that we've created. That's where I'm going to be putting it, and probably Randy's channel too, as a matter of fact.
And anybody that sees this on our Dow channel that was part of or wants to do something with us in the future, we're always open. And I think we should open it up again to that and talk to people. If someone sees this and says, hey, I want to bring my authenticity to the table again. This is the Authentic Ones, TAO channel. So let's do it again.
Sounds good. Randall, if someone wants to reach out to you, how would they do it?
Just go to my YouTube channel. That's probably the easiest.
Usually, well, and just post something on in the comments kind of thing.
You betcha. I'll always respond.
Okay, cool. That's true. I can vouch for that because I was a follower of Randall's for a long time and said nothing to him directly, but I left comments and thought, no one reads the comments anyway. And all of a sudden he says, call me. And I did. And he returned my call. Now we're friends for who knows the rest of our existence. Who knows?
For the rest of our lives. And
well,
after.
This is a lot. And after. Exactly. Yeah. We just keep on going. So who knows? We probably knew each other in a past existence or something too. Who knows?
You got it.
Randall, always a
All right,
pleasure.
brother.
Always a pleasure. And your final prayer would be wonderful once again too.
Oh yeah, with peace, harmony, love, abundance, and freedom for everyone and everything every day on my mind. Abundance, sovereignty, health, love, and euphoria.
Euphoria. Love that euphoria.
Catch you later, William. I love you.
Thanks, Randall. Love you too.